If you sit down to think for a moment, what am I scared of? What is the worst case situation? And I actually wrote it down. And you look at it and you're like, this is actually not that bad. I could handle this worst case situation if it happens. So then what are we scared of? The fear is just in our head. And one thing that my friend always says is rich people believe in their vision and doubt their fears. But broke people, they doubt their vision and they trust their fears. So stop trusting your fears and really start believing in your vision.
Welcome.
Thank you.
It is so good to be here. And you have so much notoriety behind your face, your name. You're one of the leading pioneers of storytelling, helping women tell their stories, and even on your Dream Girl podcast. But I want to get back to kind of the roots, because I would think you're brown from India or Pakistan, and you're not. So tell us where you're from.
Happy to. I think when I was younger, I struggled with this because identity, as you know, when you grow up, you're trying to identify who you are. And I used to think I am brown, but African. My first language is French, and I'm Muslim. So none of it makes sense when you compare to the rest of the world. But now it's become one of my strengths because you realize that, you know, that's pretty rich. I'm from Mauritius, born and brought up.
And where is Mauritius for a lot of us Westerners who may not have ever been?
Right. You know Africa, you know Madagascar.
We know Madagascar.
Yeah, of course you do. And Mauritius is an island in the Indian Ocean next to Madagascar, and you might not see it because it's so tiny on the world map, it's a dot.
Wow.
So we're a population of 1.2 million. And as I was telling you, Mauritius is a volcanic island, so it didn't exist. It's just a volcano underwater that just kept erupting until it became an island. It was not inhabited. The dodo was there. You know the dodo bird?
Yes, yes.
So that's where it existed. And
you know, my son taught me about the dodo bird.
No way.
Yes.
Yeah, kids know the dodo more than we do. So it went extinct in Mauritius because all the Dutch people ate them.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
So they were apparently very yummy and they couldn't fly. So,
wow.
yeah, so we got discovered by a few people, but the official ones were the Dutch, and then they couldn't brave the weather, they left. Then we were a British colony, French colony, back to a British colony. And during these colonizations is when they brought people, the obvious one being they brought slaves at the time. A lot of them came from Western Africa.
Western Africa, were they African or Indian origin?
African.
Okay.
So these are all black people.
Yeah.
And at the time, I don't think they had Asian people in Africa. You know?
Okay, right. It was long bag.
It was long
long bag.
And then after the abolition of slavery, this new business started of bringing indentured laborers, and they were brought in from India and China. So now if you look at the population of Mauritius, we're so diverse, and the majority are brown people, but we're so like ambiguous brown people because you can't tell what kind of brown we are. But a lot of us are descendants of immigrants, and then you have a very minimal group of Chinese people still remaining, and a vast majority of black people. And we still have some remnants of the people who were the initial colonizers, right? So
wow.
They still own a lot of land and things in Mauritius. But we became independent in 1968. And I actually, one of my most viewed YouTube videos was when I sat with my dad to trace back our ancestors.
Oh, no way.
And it turns out that 5 generations ago is when my ancestor came from India. But we don't know which port they came from. We don't know where they were from in India. We only know that he was 7.
He was 7 when he came.
Yeah, and he didn't have a first name or anything. He just had the family name, and he was 7 years old.
Was he by himself?
Yeah.
Your dad came by himself?
No, not my dad.
Okay.
My ancestor.
Oh, your ancestor.
5 generations ago.
Right. 5, but like a great grandfather.
Yes, grandfather.
By himself at 7. That's insane.
Right, and he never went back to his people, right? And then for us, what was incredible was 5 generations ago was him. 5 generations later, it's me, who went to Oxford and Cambridge. And it's like that jump that these 5 generations have done is something we can't even imagine for our future 5 generations, right? They've done it all. But yeah, so that's how our native language, I was telling you, is Creole, which is a dialect of French.
Yeah.
But it came out from the languages of what everyone was speaking. So it's a bit of French, it's a bit of Hindi, it's a bit of English, but very distorted. And no one else understands it other than Mauritians. Even if Guyana has a Creole, in Africa, in different countries, you have Creoles. They're all super different because the nature of the Creole language is something that comes out from the location and what people talk about there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. But you also speak French.
Yeah, but in school we're taught English and French, and the most commonly used language is French. But yeah, and we are also taught what they would call at the time an Oriental language in primary school. So I also learned Urdu.
Oh, you learned Urdu? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so I'm fluent in Urdu as well.
Oh, you
Yeah.
are. Okay. All right. Well, okay. Well, you just threw that in. You were the first Mauritian to actually go to both Oxford and Cambridge.
Correct, yes.
How was that? Was everyone just celebrating you from the island? I can only imagine your graduation was like huge.
You would think so, but when I got into Oxford at the time, there were already like a couple of us that had gone to either Oxford or Cambridge. And my plan was actually to stay in Oxford for my PhD. So I had gotten in, I had a scholarship, I was going to do 8 years in Oxford. I did get a seat at Cambridge, but I thought, no, I have my friends here, I know here, I want to stay here. And then that scholarship fell through just before I was about to go, and ended up being forced to take a gap year to re-strategize. And during that time, I thought, a little bit of trauma now from the Oxford PhD.
Yes,
So
yes.
let's go to Cambridge instead. And I eventually ended up going there. And at the time, I didn't know this. And then eventually it came out. I don't even remember how it came out. And then someone figured it out. And then I was on all the newspapers at the time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so then it became a little bit of news. And that's how I found out. Even I didn't know.
Oh my goodness. So, okay, love. Your journey as the host of Dream Girl has inspired countless women. I mean, your views on YouTube go viral. You are literally one of the top, I would say, YouTubers here that are actually, doing women's empowerment in such a beautiful way of really telling women's stories. Can you share a pivotal moment when a story that perhaps maybe you were interviewing or maybe for yourself completely changed your perspective?
Ooh, that's a very good one. I think, honestly, as you said, like for me, the podcast, I do it for very selfish reasons. I enjoy it. I love talking to people. And one question I get, I'm sure you do as well, is how do you keep going when you were not seeing any results? You were not getting the views that you wanted. You were not getting the engagement that you wanted. And I thought to myself, I was like, I just enjoyed it. I really thought that I was learning myself. And it was a bonus that other people were watching it.
Yeah.
So for me, I've always enjoyed it. And I always get asked this question of what was one memorable thing or something, but I'll tell you, this is selfish enough. This is one of the stories that I shared on the podcast, and it was the first time I went viral.
Oh.
And it went to 20 million views.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, overnight. And the first experience of going viral is crazy. My phone was bugging out.
Of course.
It didn't know what to do. TikTok wouldn't open and Instagram wouldn't open.
Oh my goodness.
Because at the time I still had all my notifications coming out, and I was like, oh. So I'll tell you the story because it's one of my most favorite stories as well.
Oh my goodness.
Obviously in the clip, I don't say it, but we don't know whether it's a true story or not, but I still think the lesson from it is beautiful. So it's about Michelle Obama.
Oh.
You must know the story, I think. Do you? We'll find out.
Okay, we'll find out.
So the story is that it was back in the day when Barack Obama was still president, and they were on a day out and they had not planned to stop for lunch, but they got hungry. So, because it's such high security, they had to find somewhere a little bit remote for them to go have lunch. And they found a restaurant, they closed it off, and they went and had a really beautiful lunch. And after the lunch, the waitress came and said, oh, the chef would really like to meet Michelle in the kitchen. So she went back to meet him, and then she came back saying, you're not going to believe this. He was my high school sweetheart.
Oh.
Right? And Barack Obama was like, imagine if your life turned out a little bit differently, you would have become the owner of this beautiful, quaint restaurant. And she said, if my life turned out differently, he would have been the president of America.
Oh, wow, he wouldn't have been the president.
No, the chef would have been the president.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Huge. owning her power.
Right, like
Owning
knowing
her
your
power.
worth. And yeah, so that story has always been super special because
it's so special. Well, and I want to kind of get into, because of the work that you do and the stories that you feature, and yes, you know, with everyone wanting to be a YouTuber or putting content and really putting themselves out there, what do you tell to them when, you know, you're kind of putting the effort in and you're not seeing the results?
I think if you're new to the game, you can't expect any result until you've at least produced 50 pieces of content.
Yeah.
And that was advice I got from very early on, where it was like 50 pieces you produced in the dark. Don't expect anyone to see it. This is just for you to learn the art and the skill of it, and to learn what you're good at, what do you enjoy doing, and what is working for you. So just 50 pieces you just need to produce, but every time you need to be improving a little bit. And then after 50 is when you start to look at the data and see, is it working? Is it not working? And you will already start to see something that is picking up better than the rest, and then you push on that. But I think when it comes to creating content, it's a lot of trial and error. Till now, my team still experiment, and some experiments and really badly. Like one time we tried to do, YouTube Studio just came out with the ability to A/B test your thumbnails.
Okay.
Which means that you slap on 3 thumbnails for the video,
okay,
and YouTube will show different audiences, different ones, and they will tell you which ones performed the best, and then you can choose that one. I was like, great, this way I don't even have to do it. YouTube will do it for me.
Yeah.
That video got 200 views after one day. After one day, we're in the 10K. I was like, what's going on? I was like, what? And then I thought, oh no, when you click on that test, it affects engagement, but it wasn't that. It's an experiment.
Right.
So now probably some of the thumbnails are just doing so badly that YouTube just doesn't want to show my video anymore.
Got it.
So experiments are meant to fail as well. So you can't have all experiments that perform well. So you need to be testing and learning. And if you're not improving, and you know Stephen Bartlett says that all the time, that it's about sweating the 1%, right? So if you think, oh, this is a minor detail, no one will care about it, that's exactly what would make the difference between you being average and being incredible.
Ooh, so sweating the 1%.
Right.
And I feel like so many people, you know, because you hear in this game of content of like, just put out your content, just put out your content, just, you know, just whatever it is, doesn't matter. But if you really think about it, that 1% can make all the difference.
Absolutely. And I think there are different phases, right? So the initial phase when you're new, you do need to just churn out content. And then once you've done that initial phase, then it can't just be blindly putting out content. Then you need to be improving. You need to know what your audience wants. You need to know what audience you want to attract. And then you kind of like reverse engineer that. So that's how we've done it.
Well, it's so interesting because I'm sure you're getting this question a lot where, you know, we are braving this new era of AI and, you know, these content that's coming out where they'll be able to tell their stories for you. I don't know if your team has kind of played around with an AI version of yourself yet and what your thoughts are on that. But with everything being in that way, what can you share about your own authenticity with the work that you're inspired to put out now?
Yeah, honestly, the number of startups that reach out to us to trial their AI tools is crazy. And the craziest one I had was actually built by one of my friends. And it's kind of like having a phone call with your favorite creator.
Okay.
And it's all audio. You say hello and you hear me. And I tried it out. And imagine, I haven't done any kind of testing for them. I didn't do any recording for them.
Right.
They just scouted YouTube, right? And I thought it was me. The intonation, the pronunciation, the accent, everything.
The accent?
Yeah, it's to a T. I made my mom speak to her, and my mom was like, that's you. I was like, it's not me, it's AI. And I was like, oh no. So that was scary. But I do see AI kind of like taking, like, I don't want to say AI is taking over. I think AI is facilitating our work. So I use AI a lot. I use it to prepare for my conversations. I use it to strategize. I use it to churn out ideas about how can we approach any kind of topic. But in terms even of editing now, I'm sure I've tried a few. So this is where I don't think we are at a place yet where we we should be scared of AI, because when it comes to editing, I've tried it many times of just uploading the full video and then getting the short clips.
Yeah.
And they are meant to be doing that automatically. And every time it doesn't beat what I do, what my eyes do.
Right.
Because you also have an understanding of, you can see like facial expressions, you can see how the other person is responding. And you also have an understanding of what do people like to hear from me usually? What would create a lot of emotions?
You already know.
And especially when it comes to emotional connection, a lot of times the AI can't comprehend that part. They find bits that are very similar to something else that has gone viral in the past. But I think that when it comes, again, so creativity is something that I don't think AI will be able to beat us at it anytime soon, because the human mind, even, we're seeing there was this whole like Ghibli cartoon thing where you could get AI to create these cartoons, these images.
I saw that. Right? It was a trend, yes.
It was beautiful and it looks great, but what is AI doing? It's copying an artist, right? So the origins of it comes from creativity of a human being. So I think when it comes to, first of all, connecting with someone else and having a conversation, AI could never do that. And also when it comes to bringing out emotions from someone else, again, AI will not be able to do that, and especially creativity. I think we have a long way before we have to worry about AI being more creative than humans.
It's so true. And, with that, I feel like it really has amplified the amount of things that we can start as either a startup or somebody that's new to doing content or sharing their story.
Yeah.
Which is, if I look back and I'm like, oh wow, when I was, if I was a new speaker or somebody that was sharing my story for the first time, there's so many ways that you could just use ChatGPT or Gemini or any of the ones and say, all right, here's what I think my story is, but I'm sure give me 10 other ways to slice it in a matter of 2 minutes. So I want to, double click on, you, because what's one secret story that you once doubted sharing, and how did it let out your creativity or transform the way you think of storytelling?
A secret story. I don't know if this qualifies as a secret story, but there was one aspect of my life I never talked about online. And then I made a video once, but it was a solo episode, and I just sat down with the camera and I just talked about it, which was about being single in your 30s. And it was nothing near what I've talked about in the past. And I never talk about my personal life. And then the way that resonated was crazy. And I remember thinking, I knew that this would be relatable. I knew that a lot of women would want to share their own stories with that. And the comment section was just filled with people sharing their own experiences of it. And I was coming from a place of, it's really fine. And I think we are putting pressure on it just because of what expectations from society has been. When in reality, if you ask yourself, do I really care about being married right now? Probably not. Because you might want to, but it's not your number one priority. Because I think if it was priority, we would have probably done it by now.
It's true. Probably done it and maybe done it again.
Exactly. So I think that's why I think that was a very good one of opening up about something that I was a little bit uncomfortable with, but I did it because I knew that the audience would resonate with this and it would alleviate, hopefully, a bit of pressure that we're putting on ourselves.
Well, yeah, and I love that because a lot of women here on the show, they're braving being single in their 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Yeah.
And what's been your take on that?
I think, firstly, I will challenge a little bit the fact that we see that as braving it, because I don't think it's something that is a challenge that we are having to conquer. I think it's just that life has evolved so much. The way gender relationships have changed, and what does being a woman mean, what does being a man mean, all of that has really evolved over time. And we've reached a point now where I feel like, no hate to the men, but I feel like men have not evolved as much. And I feel like their way of life hasn't changed that much. They're still working, they're still, doing the same thing. They didn't have to fight anything, but I feel like women, more and more women are now financially independent, which was not the way in the past. And the way the relationships would work would be that the woman is financially dependent, therefore they need to find a partner to get married and settle down. But now there's not much that need. And now with all the technology that there there is to have children, women are able to have children much later in life.
Yeah.
So now there's no pressure of the biological clock. A lot of women are freezing their eggs. And I think also a lot of women are using their 20s to just set their careers, just like all the men do usually.
Right.
And then they're like, I want to have a family as well. Doesn't mean I don't want one, but it's just not my priority right now. And I want to do that later because it is now possible to do that later. And we've also come to the realization that marriage is not the end of the line. Not everybody wants to be married. Not everybody wants to have children. And no shade on anyone. People who still want to be married, they should be married. People who want to work, work. People who don't want to work, don't work. And I think that's the whole point that I feel like modern feminism is getting a little wrong, where the whole point of feminism is choice. Everyone should have the choice of doing what they want to do, not what you think is right, not what you think is wrong. And that's where we get it wrong, where now, you know, there's a trend of the soft life, right? Women are living this soft life, and they get a lot of hate because they're like, oh, you're taking women 20 years back. But that's what they want to do. I want a soft life.
I would like to do a soft life too.
Why am I hustling? So I think that's the whole point of we should let people have their own choices. And now you see people finding the love of their life in their 60s.
Yes.
And you're like, great, good for you. You know, you didn't settle for someone who was not your partner, and now you found someone. And I think we still have so much work to do in unlearning all of these patterns that society has ingrained in us. And a lot of times we don't really understand, where do our beliefs stem from? We think it's what we believe in, but if you dig a little bit deeper, it probably comes from really patriarchal societies. It comes from culture, it comes from religion, and it comes from a lot of things that maybe you don't think you're carrying, but you are. And I think that's why I say this all the time. So I just sat with a camera like this, and I knew my one message I wanted to send is, it's also okay if you do feel lonely. I think a lot of women are ashamed. So I had a guest on the podcast where she very openly talked about it, and she said, you know, she became a millionaire at 23, self-made, and now she's a multimillionaire. And she was like, I have this huge villa in Bali, and I sit in my villa crying alone because I don't have a husband, I don't have children, and that's the one thing I really wanted. And I wonder if I made the wrong decision at some point in my life. And I said, it's okay to feel lonely, but we're not alone. You know, it's not like no part of my life has meaning anymore. It's just that it's absolutely okay to want this as well, and you don't have it yet, and you're allowed to be sad about it.
Of course.
And there's no shame in it, and that doesn't mean you went wrong in your life or your decision. I think it's a very big challenge for our generation, and things are shifting, and I want to see where it goes, where the shift finally settles. There's probably going to be where we'll see people getting married much later in life, and that will become the new norm.
Well, and it's so huge, right? Because I think that there is a lot of these cultural nuances that have to be shattered. Yeah. You know, like the log kya kenge. What will people say? What will people think?
Yes.
If you don't do this, if you don't, you know, and I feel like a lot of, even with this show, The Brave Table, braving some of the things that either are taboo or that we don't want to talk about, or, you know, once upon a time I was married and then got divorced. But again, it was like, what will people think? What will people say? And you're right. I was just watching, another creator, and she was posting about, you know, being single, and well, these are the things that I can actually do now, and I can book a flight to London on a Friday. So it's also amplifying the things that I think it's always easy to say the grass is always greener, but amplify the things that we are able to do. Exactly. When, you know, I can live vicariously through you. And, you know, I think that a lot of times we forget that because we're so in search of the thing that we are lacking in, that we forget how amazing, you know, it is. So you are a community builder. I've seen that. I've seen that in being here in the region for just 3 months, and I see the professional networks that you have created. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and why community building, as you are a YouTuber, someone that tells stories, and someone that is so good at it? There's 2 questions that I want to go into that, but I want to bring up the community piece too.
absolutely. I'll start with the why. So I'm sure you've seen this concept online where people are saying that we need to have a board of directors for our life, you know, and not knowing the actual terms, but that's how I've always functioned. You know, I've been very lucky in life where I had people who are older than me, who are much more experienced than me, that have guided all of my decisions, especially professional decisions. And having these mentors, these, whatever you call them, directors, it's really helpful, because sometimes your family might want the best for you, but they don't understand this area that you're trying to venture in, and you don't understand it yourself. And it's kind of like, why shall I hustle for 10 years when someone else has the learnings from the past 10 years, right? So, and that community for me has helped enormously. That's how I ended up in Dubai. That's how I quit my job 3 times, and I've never applied for a job.
Oh, wow.
It always came from my network of people that I knew. So I know about my privilege, and I know how this is my unfair advantage that I'm surrounded by these people, and I wanted to create that community. And I remember when I was working my corporate job here, one of my friends, who is now my business partner, she moved here as well as an investment banker.
Oh, wow.
And we were both working our corporate jobs, and she was telling me, where do we go to meet people who are not in our companies, and who are not in our industry per se, just to make friends, you know, professional friends. So we started looking around, and it was really hard. It was either women who were older than us, or it was specifically for moms, or it was specifically for people from a certain country. And then we were like, oh, it was mixed. And the mixed ones, you know, a lot of times it's really not giving. And it just gives like social network kind of vibes.
Of course.
So then we thought, okay, why don't we just try it? Let's just set up one networking brunch and see what happens. She had a community online, I had a community online. And people kept asking us to do an in-person meetup. So we thought, let's merge the forces, do an in-person meeting.
So much better when you do it together.
So much better, so much better. And we thought, okay, hopefully, let's say we get 20 people, we would be very happy.
Yeah.
And then we put out the wait list, and we had 300 people sign up.
Oh my goodness.
So we have a capacity issue. So we still only did it with like 50 because of the capacity. But then we realized that we've tapped on something that is much needed here. And the people who came were incredible. We just felt so energized from meeting people, because all of these women, imagine on a Saturday morning, you're taking time out of your weekend to come and meet people you don't know, and just to network. So they are really driven, and they're also super social and friendly. And since then we've done like 20 events.
Wow.
And we've always hit more than 100 now every single time. And but we make sure to keep it kind of like professional. You need a learning from it. We don't want people to come and don't get any takeaway.
Right.
So we've done
like
it
value driven.
100%. So we've done it like masterclass vibes. So we've done building wealth. We've done how to invest. We've done public speaking, how to build a social media on the side. And we love the community we've built. We are now a community of 20,000 people.
Oh my goodness.
In Dubai, yeah. And
in Dubai.
In Dubai.
It's amazing. So for anybody listening to this, because obviously a lot of my listeners are from the West, you know, the US, Canada, UK. For anyone that's like, okay, because even just being here in the last 3 months, you all love to meet in person. And you got, like, we meet online, we build our stuff online, but you guys love to meet in person. Everything is a coffee in person.
Yes.
And Brave Table fam, I've been talking about this on my solo cast. But here, there is this in-person nature. And so for anybody that is over there that's curious, like, well, what is the 5 steps or the 3 steps that I can start creating community and inviting people to sit at the table and really build an in-person network? Because, well, in the West, you know, 1 in 3 people are lonely. In the US alone, 48% of Americans report feeling lonely, and actually report only having 5 people that actually know who they are deeply. So having a missing link of meaningful connections. So what is your take on how can they start if they're inspired by you after this?
I will go back to what you said in terms of meaningful connections. And I think for a meaningful connection to happen in the sense of building community, you need to have something in common. So you need to, whoever is trying to build a community, you need to identify what are you looking for here? Are you looking to make friends? Are you looking for people who share the same hobby as you? Are you looking for people who share the same mindset as you? But there needs to be, what is the common ground? And then once you have that, honestly, start with one person, you know? Let's be like, let's do a coffee catch up. I remember one of my friends, she's in Cambridge, she lives there, and she really wanted to do a book club. And she was like, I hate these online book clubs. I want people to come into my living room and we'll sit and read a physical book together. And she put it out on her Facebook. She's not an influencer of any sort. And 3 of her friends came the first time. And then after that, they invited other people. And now she does it on a bi-monthly basis. And she's got like 50 people.
Oh, wow.
And she's very happy with this number, so she's stopped now. But that's what I mean. You need to start small. And I think don't start with the expectation that immediately you're going to find your audience. It takes time for you to find that part of the internet or of the world where it's your people. But they're there. It's just about putting out the information, have a little flashing red bulb so they know where to come. And then eventually by word of mouth, it kind of spreads. But it needs to be a very clear mission of what are we doing here and why shall I join?
Right. And almost like the benefits of what they will get once they're actually there.
Absolutely.
So good. Let's talk about redefining leadership for the modern woman. I mean, as powerful as our connections are, I mean, they're only part of one equation, but you're known for blending elite education with real world entrepreneurship. You've got to. So what does it mean to lead with both head and heart? And was there a moment where you had to choose one over the other?
Wow, yes. So firstly, I will say that I'm still learning. Every day I'm trying my best. And one thing I initially thought was that I lead a lot more with heart than with head. I have way too much empathy as a manager, especially. And at times that proved to be a problem because either there's just too much that I'm not stopping or I'm not communicating or I get taken advantage of because I listen too much to people's woes. And that's one learning I had. Again, it was one of my old managers. She sat me down and she was saying, you know, having a difficult conversation about work with someone has nothing to do with their own self-worth. And you need to not associate these two together. So when you're telling someone they're bad at what they do, you're not telling them they're a bad person. But you also need to be okay with the fact that this person will not like you for a minute after you've given them constructive feedback. None of us like feedback. I don't like feedback.
Right, right, exactly.
And she was like, it's normal. And one thing you need to learn as a manager as well is that you cannot be a people pleaser. You have to be okay with being the villain sometimes because you have to take the hits because you are heading this ship. And if something happens just because you were trying to be nice to someone, is not worth it. So then that's when I had a whole thing of like, let's recalibrate. And in terms of how do we lead in a way that there is empathy, people feel safe, because I'm sure you've seen this, I think Google, they did a research that performance is highly linked to how psychologically safe someone feels at work. And what does that mean? What does safety mean at work? It means that I'm allowed to make mistakes. It means that I'm allowed to raise any concern that I might have. And it means that I'm respected and, you know, held with respect in a place of work. And a lot of these are feminine qualities that we have. And I think women are born leaders anyway. We know how to sense the environment. We know how to make other people feel comfortable. And in the past, all of these feminine traits were seen as weaknesses in a leader. But more and more, we're realizing that it's so important, and female leaders should lean into all of their feminine skills in order to make people feel more comfortable at work. But at the same time, I think a challenge that most female leaders face is taking up space, speaking up, and taking credit for the work that you've done and telling people off when something goes wrong without you being quote unquote a bitch. And that's what happens, right? A lot of times we're called bossy instead of being called, you know, a good boss.
Or you're bitchy if you're just trying to give constructive feedback.
You're setting boundaries and then you're difficult. Right? So a lot of these narratives are starting to change, and it's also changing because we have more women in the conversation now because women are leaders now. So it's not just you trying to convince the male leaders that, listen, this is okay. But now having a seat at the table means that now we are starting to see the rise of feminine traits as leaders. And I think that's one thing that I cannot wait to see more of.
Oh, it's huge. What advice would you give to women who are ready to redefine leadership on their own terms, like breaking free from expectations to really embrace and stand into their power?
I think one thing that nobody told me, and I hope it's helpful to others, is becoming a leader is a very lonely journey. And it's not false when people tell you that it gets lonelier at the top. It's true. And that's mostly because you need to now lean into who you are and what do you bring to the table? What are your expectations of others? And that's when you need to be okay with, again, being the bad guy. And just taking a moment to recalibrate the fact that when you're working as part of a team as opposed to leading the team, they're two very different things, not just in terms of your day-to-day work, but in terms of the amount of responsibility you take, how you're viewed by other people, and how you should view everyone else. And being a leader means having difficult conversations. It means also making really difficult decisions sometimes.
Yeah.
And also means that people are looking up to you. People need to believe in the vision that you're selling. And I think, again, a lot of managers that I've seen, especially men, they will tell you, do this, do this, do this, but they're not telling you why you're doing all of this. He has the vision, he knows where he's going, but he won't share it with the team. And that's one thing I try to put into practice a lot with my team is I will sit them down every quarter being like, this is my plan for the podcast. This is the plan for the business. This is where we want to be. This is what a great outcome would be. This is what an average outcome would be. And this is what a terrible outcome would be. And for us to get there, these are the different things we need to achieve. And based on that, each of you have now your own task. And when people know what the goal is, they know what they're working towards, there's a bit more of an emotional connection to their day to day. And again, I think that's one thing, definitely take the team on the journey with you.
Take the team on a journey with you. I think that's so profound. And oftentimes we forget. And we don't really think kind of that, especially if we're in that visionary role, you know, and it's just reactionary. And it's just reactionary, especially as a creator.
100%.
You know, and kind of segueing because, you know, I think everyone is a walking brand for themselves today. Whether you're putting out content just about your dog or your child or what vacations that you're going to, what do you recommend a creator, or how do you see your content now evolving? Because I know you're mostly on YouTube, but for anybody that is kind of peering from the outside, that's like, oh, I should be thinking about this as a business, or is there really a business in this? What should I be really thinking of next? How did you actually go to make that shift? And what can creators really expect in their walking personal brand that we all are right now? Yeah,
I think creating content is evolving really fast. The social media platforms are really evolving as well. And yeah, initially I started with just audio podcasts. I was doing purely just Spotify.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, my first season was purely audio.
Oh, okay.
And then second season, I was recording online and I started YouTube then. But then since then, from season 3 onwards, I was recording in a studio and I'm doing across all platforms, right? So, and I always used to think that I'm a YouTube girl. But then I blew up on Instagram, and Instagram till date is still my biggest platform.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so Instagram is my biggest platform. YouTube has grown as well.
I mean, congratulations. You've hit some big milestones on YouTube.
Yeah,
congrats.
we did.
We just started on YouTube. So yes, any tips that you have for us, that would be great.
I'll tell you what, YouTube is a difficult girlfriend. I think you just got to hold her hand all the time. Oof. And the minute you leave it, she forgets about you. That's it.
She's a difficult girlfriend.
She is.
Take note.
She's needy. So for me now, I'm consistently across all platforms. And that's because, again, one advice I have for you, which I don't even remember the source of it, but an audience member needs to see you across at least 5 platforms to remember you. Oof. Right? And I think it was Gary Vee maybe who said that before someone buys something from you, they need to see 7 pieces of content across at least 3 platforms.
Wow.
So that's when you're selling. Now, if you're just selling your own brand, you want to become recognized, you need to be on at least 5 different platforms. And it's quite easy when you think about it. We're talking YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, LinkedIn. You're done, right? And that's everything. So for us now, it's just about kind of like strategizing per social media platform, you know, because different platforms have very different needs. The audience look for different things. And we recently started a newsletter as well. So we've added one more to it.
Oh, good. You've got your email list.
I know. We've had the email list for a very long time. We just never did anything about it. So now we were like, okay, maybe time to start the newsletter. And I also have, so if we're talking about, you know, monetization, there are different ways of monetizing as a content creator. Obviously, YouTube, you have the AdSense, which people will, per view, you get paid. And then you can get sponsors for different things. You can get product placements. You can get paid for speaking. You can get paid for moderating a panel, appearances.
Which you do a lot of here.
Yeah.
You're quite a busy lady.
Honestly, I just came from one this morning and I was just like, oh my God, I'm tired of smiling. Can I just stop smiling? But also, the other thing is then you can start creating digital products, right? So for me, the one question I get a lot is, how did you do the podcast? How did you get there? What about this? How did you reach out to guests? How did you get your dream guests? How did you make your first 6 figures? So all of this I have now compiled into a podcast academy.
Oh, you do have one?
We do have
I didn't
one.
know that. I wanted to share it in the show notes.
Yeah, it's been there.
Is it Podcast Academy?
It's called the Podcast Academy.
Oh, I love that.
It's there. It's a pre-recorded course, so you can do it at your own pace. And it has different, it goes from ideation to your first season published. And it has everything included in it. And if you're based in Dubai, we have all sorts of discount codes for the students in terms of studio, editing, repurposing, everything we have in there. And we also have specific things in terms of if you just want an email template for guests, but we've tried to really make it easy so no one has any excuses anymore in terms of doing it.
Well, because I think that you know, and even when I started this 3 years ago, people would always be like, wow, I want a place where I want to share my content. And maybe it's not like the taking pretty pictures on Instagram or any of those things. It's literally, you know, the voice. And you know, it's so easy if this is your way of communicating as a podcaster to really share. I didn't realize we were going to get to over 300 episodes either. So the fact that you have a podcast academy, I feel like is huge for people who just want to say, okay, I have something to share. Maybe they're an orator in general. If you're the one doing like long voice notes to your friends on WhatsApp, hi, I was one of those people. You could literally turn that into a podcast. Can you not?
You can. And did you know about this fact that if you've published 10 episodes, you're in the top 1% of podcasters in the world?
What?
Yeah. Because everybody gives up before 10 episodes.
If you can publish 10 episodes, you're in the top 1%.
Yeah. Of podcasters across the world.
Wow.
Everyone starts and gives up. So if you really want to do it, I think you can do it.
Huge. So you've had such a beautiful journey. And before I get into the spill the chai round, where we have our little rapid fire question, is there anything else that you want to share with our audience today?
Honestly, the advice I give to everybody, which I wish somebody told me when I was a bit younger, is you need to get out of your own way. I think when it comes to the general like feminism journey and everything, I think we've made a lot of strides where things are easier for women nowadays, most of the time. So whenever you hear things like imposter syndrome, blah, 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 don't let it get to you. I think these are all tools that have been put in place to make us doubt whether we belong somewhere. And a lot of times, whether it is starting a podcast, whether it is applying for your dream job, whether it is, you know, asking someone on a date, we kind of like get into our own way and we have this voice in our head that's telling us we're not good enough, or it's imposter syndrome, or maybe I need to wait until I'm better, I need to upskill myself and then I can do it. And I think we need to stop that narrative in our head, and we need to know that what is the worst case if I try to do something? Will I die? No. So I can do it. And a lot of times, even for me, when it came to quitting my jobs and stuff, everybody was telling me, what will you do if it doesn't work out? And if you sit down to think for a moment, what am I scared of? What is the worst case situation? And I actually wrote it down. What is the worst, absolute worst case? And you look at it and you're like, this is actually not that bad. I could handle this worst case situation if it happens. So then what are we scared of? The fear is just in our head. And one thing that my friend always says is that, you know, rich people believe in their vision and doubt their fears. But broke people, they doubt their vision and they trust their fears.
They trust their fears. Oh.
So stop trusting your fears and really start believing in your vision.
That's a mic drop. Say that again, Sheen. It's huge.
Okay, you need to stop trusting your fears and you need to start believing into your vision.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And last question for you, and because I think it's so poignant, the series that you did for Ramadan.
Yes.
And it was a solo cast series.
It was.
And it was all about featuring all of these incredible female Muslim queens that you were talking about. Literally, it was a whole series. We'll link that also in the show notes. Where did you get that inspiration from, and where do you draw your inspiration from as a creator, as a podcaster, as a, as someone that's now obviously so visible across all platforms? Because that was a lesson in history.
It was.
I was like, I didn't know that. Of course, I would never know that because I'm from the West.
Yeah.
And you're able to retell these narratives, but you're reclaiming a lot of the power in the stories that don't get told through your podcast, through your voice.
Honestly, I think different inspirations come from different places. For me, this came entirely from a conversation with my dad. So after iftar one night, we're having a chat, and because we have like a little Quran school at home between us during Ramadan, and we always discuss what we've been reading. And I was telling my dad about especially Khadija, and I was telling him, I think she's such a powerful story. And he told me, did you know that she was the first one to believe in Islam? I was like, I did not know this. For me, the narrative about her is always that she was 40, she married someone much younger than her, she was running her own business, which is very opposite to what we've been told about women in Islam. So that's what I always held on to growing up, and I always used to think, oh, she's such a badass, And then when my dad told me this, I was like, oh my God. I was like, why don't they teach us this? They always teach us, you're going to go to hell if you do this and this. But no one tells you all these inspirational stories that will help you on a day-to-day basis, which is very relatable. And then he was like, yeah, honestly. And then he started telling me there's this concept of the 5 women of Jannah, of heaven. And they've already been announced as, they will be the ones who will be there. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know that the 5 of them were this. And then after the call, I kept sitting with that and I was thinking about it. And I started Googling and reading. I was like, you know what? This is going to be perfect for my podcast. And I was kicking myself a little because I just missed International Women's Day. And I was like, for the first time, International Women's Day was in Ramadan, and this would have been perfect for it. Yeah. So then I messaged my friend being like, do you think it's too late? She was like, well, it's never too late. She was like, it's still Ramadan, isn't it? I was like, you know what? And I stayed up till 5 a.m. that night and I scripted it, the whole thing. I did all of my research. I scripted it all. I sent it to my dad in the morning. I was like, can you just fact check everything? And then the next day, I already booked the studio. I went in at 2 p.m. and I filmed it because I was flying the day after. And I was like, let's just film it. And I just filmed it. I put it out and I was like, let's see what happens. I did not expect it to be this way. Yeah. Huge. I got 80,000 followers from one of the reels.
It's huge. It's huge.
Crazy.
It's incredible.
I think one way I see it is you need to be open. And you need to be open to opportunities. You need to be open to ideas. A lot of times I see creators being very rigid, being like, this is my niche, this is my format, this is my style. But okay, it might be serving you, but what if there is something that might serve you even better? And that's one thing I've always been very flexible with, is whether it was style or format or type of content. I used to do vlogs.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. On YouTube, I used to do vlogs. I was day in the life all the time. But I've always evolved with my channel, evolved with me. And I've always taken it on different twists and turns, which is why probably YouTube hates me. But
me too, don't worry.
And I think it's so important to be open to change and to learning and to grow, because, what are we doing if we're not growing?
Right. Amazing. Okay. And where can we get a hold of you, Sheen, and all, like, your professional network? If you're in Dubai, you got to hit her up and come and watch the podcast. Where are all the best places?
For sure. I think For the podcast, on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube, they're all under my name. So Sheen Gurrib, you can search it and you'll see it. On Spotify, it's Dream, Girl. That's the podcast name.
Love it.
And on LinkedIn as well, it's my name. So just type my name, you'll find me on all the platforms. And for the Professional Network, on Instagram is our biggest page. We also have a website and we have all of our upcoming events there. And also we help people relocate to Dubai. So if you're a woman a professional woman who's looking to move to Dubai, we assist with, especially if you want to start your own business, we can help you with a trade license, with getting visas, all of that. And if you want to have a chat about what it means moving to Dubai, we have professionals. We don't even do it. We have professionals who do it.
I wish I could have talked to you before we moved and set everything up. Oh my gosh. All right, you are a breath of fresh air in everything that you do, in the way that you speak, and so poised. Now let's get into our little igniting round. So you can, whatever comes top of mind first for you. All right, best or worst guest you've had on your podcast? You don't have to say who, but what happened?
I have to say both best and worst.
You can pick.
I will say best, and that's probably Sarah Al-Madani, because we've done it 3 times now.
Oh, she's amazing. She was on ours too. She's phenomenal.
Yeah, so Sarah was a friend, and for a very long time she was saying, let me come on the podcast. And I was like, no, I don't want you on the podcast because we are friends and it's not going to come out well. But then it's probably my best viewed episode ever. And we got like 40 million views across platforms.
Insane.
So, and I felt like I got to know her in a very different light on the podcast.
Insane. Insane. Okay. One emoji that captures you or your entrepreneurial spirit.
The smile emoji with 1 teardrop.
Okay. Finish the sentence. When I need a confidence boost, I just
call my dad.
And this is from our Brave Table conversation cards. What skill that you had when you were a kid you still have today?
Chatty Cathy.
Chatty Cathy. What does being brave mean to you?
Showing up for myself every day.
And what are you braving currently?
The life of a founder.
Yes. Amazing. Sheen, thank you so much for pouring into our community on the Brave Table.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really nice.
You know I've got so much more in store for you. So if you are really ready to dive in and keep owning your emotions like the boss that you are, click right here. Go ahead, don't be shy. I'll see you in the next one. Keep shining.